Are you kidding me? Like, that would be insane. Like, I can't wait for that. It's going to happen to somebody.
Hello and welcome in. It's always college football. I'm your host, Greg McElroy, and we appreciate you being with us from wherever it is that you're coming to us from, whether that's on the podcast platform. We've seen so many of you guys reaching out. I meant to put down some names and pull up some names of all the people that have written reviews and left us ratings. We're getting tons of ratings every show. We must be doing something right, and we appreciate the support that you guys are giving us. It's awesome. We are full speed ahead. We're at the midway point now of the college football season, and we're starting to kind of separate some teams out. We got a huge weekend coming up this weekend, some massive matchups the last couple of weeks, a bunch more coming up at the end of October, and then November, all hell will break loose. So we'll see how it all goes down. We have a great show today. We're going to visit with Colt McCoy, a good friend of mine, known him for a very long time, have the utmost respect for him. He has now ventured into the world of broadcast. He's with NBC and has been on the call for Colorado, Nebraska. He saw Ohio State. He, of course, has close relationship with the Texas Longhorns. We'll talk to him a little bit about Texas A&M and that rivalry returning. As a kid from Texas, what does it mean to him? So a lot of great visits and a lot of great conversations that we'll have here with Colt McCoy on today's show. So let's dive in. He's the former Texas Longhorns quarterback, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15-year veteran in the NFL, and one of the best dudes in the world. He's Colt McCoy. All right, we welcome him in now. He's Colt McCoy, one of the great quarterbacks of the 2010s, a guy that probably should have a Heisman on his mantle, but he's got several other awards and trophies littered behind him with a couple of NFL helmets as well. Colt, we appreciate the time, my friend. Let's just get this out of the way. When I had that helmet sent to me by John Bianco and those in the staff room and the equipment room there, it said, if Colt doesn't get hurt, we win, hook 'em. That came with that. So it came with a caveat, but I still have it out there. So I'll give you the floor just to issue either a support of that argument or a pushback, if you will.
Well, it's nice to have, your equipment guys and your SIDs and the people on staff have your back like that. So I'll give them an A+ for that little note they stuck in there with the helmet. That helmet does look good back there, by the way. But man, you can't say what would have happened. You never know. It's football. I mean, the ball could bounce your way. It could also not bounce your way, right? You could have got behind and thrown 3 touchdowns to Julio Jones. Who knows? You just never know. But I sure wish that, just for the hardest part about the whole not being able to finish that game was, it was hard on me. Okay. But take me out of the equation. I had played for 4 years. None of those guys had ever heard another play call in the huddle from somebody else. Coaches, think about the livelihood of coaches and just how much we all cared. It could have gone to the NFL after my junior year, but just really wanted to stay and graduate. And that was the goal, to get to the national championship. So to just have that all wiped away for me personally was it's so hard. But also I just feel for all my teammates and coaches and, all the work that we all did. Football is the greatest team sport on the planet. There's nothing else like it. And to know that, I didn't get to finish that game hurts for me, but I hurt for everyone else because we did have a good plan. We felt good about the game and knew it was going to be a hard matchup. Shoot, it's a Nick Saban coach defense. It's Greg McElroy. It's all these, and it wasn't like we were just going to roll in there and win. I mean, we were the underdogs, but at the same time, I wish that wouldn't happen. But listen, you sign up to play football, you're going to get hurt. There's 100% chance you're going to get hurt somehow, some way. You just don't ever wish that on anybody in that situation, in that magnitude of a game in the Rose Bowl. That's the hard part.
No, it was the worst, dude. We hate it. I mean, I've always said this, and look, I always appreciated your friendship and the time that we spent together. So when you got hurt, I was bummed. You know what I mean? You want to play against somebody at their best. So and we had heard on the sideline, oh, it's collarbone. It's no way, dude. Really? Yeah, it was just, it sucked. So I echo your sentiment. It's the best team game in the world. And as a competitor, it would have been great to play against you in that setting. I know you would have balled out for sure. Let's move into the modern day. First of all, you're in broadcasting now. We'll start there. It's
Trying. Just say trying broadcast.
It's weird to like make that first transition from player to broadcaster. And I think that it's weird because there's part of you that's like, I can still play, or I can do this, or I can do that. But like, this is now my role. So I tried to make it, or at least the way I approached it, I tried to make it as much like playing as I could. Like, all right, this is what I do on Mondays. This is what I do on Tuesdays. Like, I'm looking at pressure reels. I'm looking at third down red zone on Wednesdays. And then on Thursdays, I'll look at 2 minute on the plane. Like, how have you kind of started to, I guess, massage your process in preparing for some of these games?
Yeah, it's good. And listen, broadcasting is hard. I like how you do it, how well you do it, how far you've come. Like, you're a true pro. And I enjoyed listening last week. That was a good game, win to overtime. That was awesome. But I think you're right. I think developing a routine is key. And I've tried it a bunch of different ways. Honestly, I've only called 3 games, and I think definitely you see improvements each week. And the one thing that stays the same is how much I enjoy going up there and getting to talk football. Right? That's a lot of fun. You get to add your perspective to it. Probably should do that more. I don't ever want to feel like I'm just talking about myself too much. Like, I never want to do that. And so I'm learning each week. It's definitely an art. But as far as routine goes, just trying to dial that in. The more weeks in you get, the more tape there is available to watch. So you try to buzz through a couple games and then kind of look at situations and then try to get into some third downs. But at the end of the day, like, I enjoy the fact that NBC has given me the opportunity to get up in the booth and call some games in the Big Ten, which is a ton of fun. And I also, at the same time, recognize, like, there's guys who are really good and have kind of set the bar at being an analyst of calling these games. And, they went through the growth process like I'm going through, and it's not easy. But it's still, if you can still keep that like enjoyment and fun factor and when you get up in the booth, like, have some excitement. My problem is that a lot of times I feel like I'm at like a 10. We played quarterback, and so I don't want to get like too high. So when I do, but then they're like, yeah, your 10 is like a 2. So like, we need even more. And so I'm just trying to figure out that part of it as well.
Well, it's funny because we're told our whole life, hey, every play is the same. Like, we're not result oriented. Like, all right, the same guy walks in the huddle, calls the play, calls the game. Like, but it is like, it's an inflection point that is challenging. And I've found too, like, early in my career, the first game I ever called, dude, was Texas A&M Lamar. It was a lot to a little. Let's just say this. All right, they hit like a hook, big post over the top against Quarters on like the first play of the game. And it was just one after another. I think Kenny Hill threw for like 5 touchdowns and 500 yards. It was absurd. And I was like, dude, every play's a big play. If I keep yelling after every play, I'm not going to get it through the second quarter. They're like, well, maybe choose when to yell. I'm like, well, if every play is a 30-yard gain, like, when am I supposed to ramp it up?
Yeah.
But it is a feeling out process for sure. And I know you've done in everything you've ever done, I know you'll master it here very soon as well.
My first game was Colorado, Nebraska. And, you got all, like, first time in the booth, there's a lot of people up there. It's a big game, right? A lot of storylines with Colorado, all the skill, and Shedeur, like Dion, like, great. I mean, so many things you can talk about. They're fun. Colorado, Dylan Raiola was like his second start. They're got a lot of seniors on it. Like, they're kind of trying to make a bowl game. Like, it's a big home game for them, big rivalry. And all of a sudden at halftime, it's 28-0. Like, Colorado or Nebraska's blowing them out.
Right.
And so you're trying to figure, like, the hardest part for me was trying to figure out, okay, I got all this information up here. Like, how do I get some of this out, like, in a blowout? And I think I've, at the time I thought, first time, whatever. You go back and watch it now after doing 3 games, you're like, man, I would have said this. I would have handled this better. I would have talked about this more. I wouldn't even talked about this situation. And then on top of that, it's Nebraska fans who hate me already. So it was like I'm trying to show them, hey, you're blowing them out, but they all hate me anyway. So
Shouldn't you hate them? Like, I feel like they made your life really difficult in 2009. Like, I feel like if they hate you, that's wrong. Like, you should hate them. I feel
exactly. But
well, let's actually start with the horns. What we try to do here, Colt, is we try to have Sunday's conversations today. Like, that's our Wednesday show. And Texas, big opportunity this week. Have they been battle tested up to this point? I'll leave that up, to the debaters. I think they kind of have. Like, I got respect for Michigan. I have respect for Oklahoma. I know that rivalry, like, that's a tough game. I don't care how bad Oklahoma is, how good Texas is. It's a tough game. But now Georgia comes to town, and this is the team that, when you get to the SEC, this is the ramp it up. They beat Bama last year. Now they get the chance to beat the other alpha dog in the conference. So in victory, what will the reaction be for Texas fans?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I do think they have been battle tested. I don't care how down Michigan is, which they are down, but to go to Ann Arbor week 2 and like play a complete game and like really probably could have beat them worse. That's a big deal. I mean, Texas hasn't really done that in a long time, right? Okay, so that's a positive. Then you go to your rivalry, in the Cotton Bowl, which is, in my opinion, one of the best games of college football, if not the best game. Like, it's ridiculous atmosphere and tradition and all the things that game brings. And you really didn't play your best first quarter, first 2 quarters, and you blew out your rival by 30 points. And so to me, that's just like a sign of like a pretty good football team that's able to capitalize on games and situations and some momentum when you're not really even at your best. And so, yeah, I think they're going to be extremely tested this week against Georgia. But I do think they're well prepared. My deal with Texas is I don't think they're, and I know I went there and I mean, hook them, but the way that they're playing up front, offensive line, defensive line, is better than anybody else in college football. Like, we're calling games, you're calling games. I'm watching all these teams in the Big Ten. There's nobody that has like a better front on both sides of the ball than Texas. And for me, that's where it all starts. Like, I think Quinn or Arch, like, they're both playing at a really high level. They're skill guys all over the place, good tight end, running backs kind of by committee. They could score points with Sark. Defensively, they're animals. They're edge rushers. They're guys that they're not letting people score. And yes, I think that Georgia presents a very good matchup, like across the board. But at the same time, Texas wasn't ready for these heavy. I know they beat Bama last year, but they were kind of, that's the game they kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
Their O-line, D-line is set to like go into the SEC, to play consistent football, to right the ship when things go down. We can lean on the run game. We can stop the run. Like, those are things that you couldn't really say about a Texas team 2, 3, 4, 5, even 10 years ago, right? Like, and so for me, I'm just totally enjoying watching this because they're playing with a lot of confidence. They know how to execute, and they know what they're good at. It starts up front on both sides of the ball, and I think that's why I'm excited about this week against Georgia, and that's why I think they're going to win the game, is because they dominate on those two fronts.
Yeah, they're legit up front on both sides, no doubt about it. I don't want to get too far down. Like, I don't want to be in at the end of November just yet, but I just have to ask you, since you went there and since, I grew up in the state, you grew up in the state, like, the fact that Texas and Texas A&M are playing again is just amazing. But from your perspective, like, as a Texas guy, how do you view the Texas and Texas A&M rivalry?
Oh, I mean, it's I'm so happy that game is back. Like, this game, all my entire childhood was watching this game on the Friday after Thanksgiving. That's what you did. And I had family members that went to A&M, and I didn't know where I was going to. I thought I was a basketball player at the time, but I loved like football and that matchup. I remember that game was what you watched. That's what you did on Thanksgiving, and what it meant for your little football community, what it meant for the state, all those things. Like Oklahoma is its own deal, right? It's played in the Cotton Bowl. It's halfway between Norman and Austin. It's the tradition split down the middle, walking through the same tunnel. All the guys have ever played in that. It's been played there since like 1924. Okay, that's its own deal. Texas A&M is the state rivalry. That is like the game, and everyone in Texas tunes in, and it's around Thanksgiving, and so to bring that game back, I mean, holy cow! Like I'm extremely excited. Plus, it's home and home, right? So, I've lost at Kyle Field before, and I think that's one of the coolest places in college football to play. I'm not afraid to say that. It's a great environment. The fans are loud. You can't hear. They're swaying, and it looks like the stadium's going to fall over. Like, it's a cool place to play, and just having that game back, and the significance of it now, both being in the SEC, like especially at the end of the year, like that game will carry a lot of weight for both teams, especially if A&M can continue to play better and better each week like they have been. I mean, it's a huge game, and I'm pumped that it's back.
No, it's great, and it's well said. Like, I can't wait for it. I'm just glad that you, as like a Longhorn guy, are actually willing to acknowledge A&M's existence, because there's a lot of like Longhorn buddies that are like, little brother. I was like, dude, stop. A&M's legit, bro. Like, since they went to the SEC, they became very much their own thing. Yeah. So it's great to have it back, and I think it'll fuel the rivalry. You did have a chance to call Ohio State a couple weeks ago. And I know it wasn't the most competitive outcome, but you studied them that week leading up. And I know they lost this past week to the Oregon Ducks. But I came away from that game still believing that Ohio State has kind of everything you want to win a championship. So when you look at Ohio State, having seen them up close the last couple of weeks, what's your evaluation?
Yeah, great question. Ohio State, I don't think this loss hurts, but I don't think this loss kills them. Like, they're a good football team. They're well coached across the board. And they have really, really good talent basically at every position, right? Like, on offense, I mean, Jeremiah Smith may be the best receiver that I've like watched with my own eyes, especially at a young age. I mean, the dude is ridiculous. Now, he made like 2 one-handed catches that kind of changed the game. But just an overall like stud. And then they have other guys, Tate, Ibuka, like those guys make plays too. So skill-wise, they're good. And then they have in my opinion, the best 1-2 punch at running back in the country, right? With Judkins and Henderson, and their offensive line is good. And Chip Kelly can run any run scheme there is, right? When I was watching their tape, it's like, okay, we got inside zone, outside zone, gap schemes. There's a trap. There's a toss crack. There's a sweep to the field. Like, there's a reverse. Like, you got to prepare for it all with Ohio State. And so I think Will Howard does a nice job. He played good against Oregon on the road. And then defensively, this is where my issue is with Ohio State. It's their defense, because they have a lot of studs, but it's a lot of guys who have played a lot of football, who all came back, and they talk about like, we want to win the Big Ten. We want to go to the national championship. Like, they're not afraid to say this is natty or bust, like all these things. But even when I watched the Michigan State game, it's like Michigan State moved the ball up and down the field the whole first half. They just turned it over when they got in the red zone, right? They penalized and they just did things that young, inexperienced teams do. But like the down to down, first, second down play calls, the play action, guys are running wide open, right? Dudes are making long runs. Like, there's some holes that defense has to get shored up, and you saw that against Oregon, right? I think their pass rush is decent. I wouldn't say it's like awesome. I think their linebackers are fast. They flow well. I think their secondary's got some big names and they're good. But like, if you look at, I know that they're like top 5 in defense. So what I'm saying is like not truly resonating. But if you just go back and watch like down to down in their games, people move the football on them all the time, right? And so I look at a team like Texas or Georgia or Alabama, like these teams that can like score. That's what they got to shore up. I think they're very well coached, and I think they're very capable of like making a big run and maybe winning it all. Like their roster is set up that way. They're coached that way. They talk that way. That's the expectations for them. But there's some things they got to clean up on, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that like are not a problem, but like that it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was 500 yards total offense last week and big play after big play after big play. And when your best player is getting torched in the back end, like that's a concern, you know, and I'm with you. So
and they're pretty simple on defense. I know they can blitz, but like they want to play a 4-3 cover 4. That's what they want to play.
That's it.
Right. And that's fine. Like they're better than most teams. They could probably play that and beat most teams they go against. But like blitzing, disguising coverages, these are things that they're a veteran defense. They're a veteran group. Those guys have played a lot of football. So as the season goes on, like being able to do that, to play man coverage, like they're getting beat in man coverage a lot. Like that, you didn't think that's what you were going to see, but that's what you saw. So I just think defensively, they certainly have the personnel to make a run and win it all. They have to just take their medicine from this Oregon game, realize it's not going to kill us moving forward, but we can't mess up again. We got to shore all this up, and I think they'll be all right. But that would be my concern.
The thing that's funny is like you referenced there, running the 4-3 quarters, right? And we see some teams like Texas is a quarters team. Like they play quarters all the time, and they're pretty good at it because they can rush the passer. Back in your day when you were in the Big 12 with so much tempo, I mean, it was like quarters every snap, or at least most snaps. Now we're starting to see defenses that you do have the groups that are like, all right, bend, don't break, right? They keep it in front, make them snap the ball, make them play offense, what have you. They'll screw it up in the red zone. They'll get impatient, you name it. But you also now are seeing defenses that are kind of cut from, I know Wink Martindale's at Michigan, but like cut from the Wink Martindale, Rex Ryan, like we're going to overload you. We're going to blitz you. We're going to create havoc. And we think we can get you into a lot of problems because you're going to feel that pressure. So as a quarterback that played against the quarters Big 12 and back in the mid 2000s and have now seen all the exotics that the NFL will sprinkle in, which one would you rather play against?
Well, I like playing against sound defenses. I like playing against defenses where they're very good and they know their responsibilities, like Ohio State, right? But also as the opposing quarterback, like where they're supposed to be, their zones, who's matching, where they're like they don't mess up because they're well coached. The teams that always get me are the teams that just will throw out all these different blitzes, throw them against the wall, and like hopefully something sticks and we hit them in the back and sack, fumble, get a turnover, right? Those are the games that like the Rex Ryan defenses, where it's just like constantly when I get the ball, I know that like somebody's coming from somewhere and I've got to figure it out. Now those teams do present big holes in the defense. Like if you can protect it up and take a shot, like you have a higher chance of hitting those because there's less defenders. But I always liked playing against sound defenses. I look at some of the teams that run like that 3-3-5 version of defenses, I think is very good in college football. The Iowa States, Nebraska a little bit, where, all of a sudden it's like there's 3 safeties on the field. How do I identify them? Who's the down guy? Where are they all going to – how are we going to protect it? I do think that is a good defense in college, especially when you're playing against an explosive offense, maybe some tempo, skill guys on the edge, like against Texas, like being able to show you different looks and disguise some things and make you identify and process more before the ball snap. Like you have to be able to do that. And going back to Ohio State, they can, right? They can. They're good enough to just play base and beat everybody. I think their defense is gonna have to take the next step because there's too many holes out there right now.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. We'll get you out of here with this, and we appreciate your time, man. It's so great to visit with you, and we look forward to seeing you again here down the road at some point when our paths cross. But when you look at just what it might take to win, and having been in the NFL and having played in that 12-game Super Bowl playoffs, right? Or 12-team Super Bowl playoffs, right, with the wild cards and the extra rounds and the first-round buys and stuff like that. And I'm blanking off the top of my head if you ever were on a team that received a bye or on a team that had to go through the wild card, what have you.
Yeah.
But having lived that at the professional ranks, what do you think these teams are in store for when they get to the postseason and they got to win 3 games just to get to the title, where they will then be tested again against one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, yes, Texas is playing the best ball right now consistently, but it's all about when you get to the playoffs. Like, Ohio State will probably make the playoff, right? I mean, I don't even think they'll drop in the polls. I haven't looked, but like, they're a good football team. It's all about getting there, because at that point, it may the best team win, and I love it. Like, for college football, I love this. I mean, I lived in the days where 4 people went into a room somewhere and voted as the BCS, like, who was going to go, right? And like, you're leaving it up to a computer system. Like, no, let's get the best 12 teams and then let's play, right? And having a bye week will be huge at that point in the season for teams, especially if they're banged up, coming off their championship games like that. Everybody in the NFL plays for the bye. If you can get the bye and you're still in it, you're playing everybody. Like, let's get it. The cool thing is that, like, for a team like Ohio State, for example, or let's say Texas slips up at some point and they don't win the SEC, or Ohio State doesn't win the Big Ten, which would be shocking, they get to host a playoff game. That will be the biggest game, like, of all time at home against a cool opponent. Like, if Texas hosted a playoff game against, I don't know, like, call it Oregon or Ohio State or whatever it is at home, like late in the season, like almost, like around Christmas time. Are you kidding me? Like, that would be insane. Like, I can't wait for that. It's going to happen to somebody. But going back to your point, yeah, like, obviously you want to play for the bye. It's a shorter road to get to the end, less chance of injury, heal some guys up, right? You've played a lot of ball up to that point. Like, that, you shouldn't come out of that too rusty. You should come out of that rested, prepared, ready to go.
And then I kind of lied. If you could play anybody in the playoffs there in DKR, who would you want? Like, you could have anybody. You can have anybody, and you get a home playoff game. Pick any school in the country. Who does Colt McCoy want to play in DKR?
Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. Sheesh. Talking this year?
Any year. It doesn't matter. Give me the jersey.
I wanted to play the Florida Gators every year of my entire career, and I never got the chance to. And they were good. I'm not saying we would have beat them, but I wanted a piece of them so bad. You guys beat them, so we got to play y'all. But that team was stacked. I mean, across the board, their defense was good. All their DBs got drafted. I played against all those guys in the NFL. But every time I met somebody, I'm like, you're lucky. Like, I wanted a piece of you guys all through college. We never got it.
I hated them so much in college. Like, I never hated y'all. Like, I never hated anybody else, but golly, I hated Florida. I hated them 10 times more than Auburn. I hated them 10 times more than LSU. Like, our two, and I guess Tennessee too, but Tennessee was a little down then. So, like, the 3 biggest rivals didn't compare to how much I hated Florida. So I'm with you.
I always felt like there was way too much hype. I just wanted to play them.
There was a lot of hype for sure, buddy. I appreciate the time, man. So great to see you. Look forward to catching up again soon, brother. Have a great rest of the year, and good luck to your Horns.
All right. Thank you.
That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Please continue to like, rate, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your show. We also would encourage you to go to the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, subscribe to that, and check out some of the other videos that we have coming your way. So for all of us here at ACF, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, I'm Greg. We hope you have an amazing day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.